Warriors, come out to play. Warriors, come out to play. Warriors, come out to play.
In Africa, I had a reason to be born there. So we have a God. We have our gods and we have our mode of worship.
Queens, nod your head if you know you got soul. Women, snap your fingers, let your hair wrap roll. Come on. Kings, got us good like we ain't trap brown. All my brothers, put your hand on your chest now.
Freedom's what we need, more solutions is the key. Wave the banner of the free, that's the red, black, and green. Bringing truth to the streets, water get no enemy. If it's peace, we at ease. If it's war, we don't cease. EYE's on the crackers and police. Never slack up even when we free, cause we ain't free until we get the land, that's the green. Black power, new African, liberated from the thieves, nothing better else to be.
Queens, nod your head if you know you got soul. Women, snap your fingers, let your hair wrap roll. Come on. Kings, got us good like we ain't trap brown. All my brothers, put your hand on your chest now.
Stimulated cause I'm liberated. Rock me African medallion in the middle of the clan. Situation freedom come drum playing by the river. I deliver for my people. It's the sequel of revenge. My friends get ready. Every knee shall bow. Every tongue shall tell. On the mountain I reveal. Throw the shells. 4 lights side up. Dark one up in my cup. Pour it out and then I strut. Alafia yeah.
Queens, nod your head if you know you got soul. Women, snap your fingers, let your hair wrap roll. Come on. Kings, got us good like we ain't trap brown. All my brothers, put your hand on your chest now.
When the African doesn't want to understand or participate in the reason why he was born,
Queens, nod your head if you know you got soul. Women, snap your fingers, let your hair wrap roll. Come on. Kings, got us good like we ain't trap brown. All my brothers, put your hand on your chest now.
see, Africa has not been able to contribute its own knowledge to this universe. But we have knowledge in Africa. You understand?
Yeah, of course.
You see, so all these things need to be in the education system of the African countries.
Peace to everybody out there, man. I'd like to welcome you to the Mossi Warrior Clan YouTube channel. Mornings with the Mossi. It's your brother Sean P in the place to be. Like the show, share the show, tell a friend, we're actually live. I'm going to get into, I'm going to respond to something, a comment that was made yesterday on another channel, on the SESU channel, regarding the topic of the role of women or how things are delegated on the continent of Africa. Before doing, I do want to make sure that I actually provide context. So for all of y'all that are joining with us today, peace to everybody that's out there in the chat. Those of you who will catch the replay, those of you who are interested in the ongoing discussion that'll probably continue to transpire for the next YouTube street news cycle. You know, make sure that your voices are heard and your perspective is felt on this necessary conversation. It's not just a one-sided argument. It's plenty of sides in this conversation. So please like the show, share the show. Again, tell a friend, we're live. Morning with the Mossi with yours truly. Sajama Mboka, Lafia out there. Everybody ETM Hotel. With that being said here, give me a second. I want to kind of share my screen. I want to get into the reason why we're here. I'm pretty sure there'll be some other people that'll probably tap in late as possible. However, I guess they'll catch the replay or they'll tap in to join a discussion when they come in. But yeah, so as Zane says it right here, clear as day. Zane says it right here. So with all due respect, let me try to send this to dude, man. Let me try to send this to dude. James, otherwise known as Pan-African Design or whatever the case. And a lot of times he kind of make these mistakes because he's done this before. But this is where you could tell the people who study and the people who don't study differentiate. You could tell this is where people watch too much YouTube and people who carry the gist of Eurocentric ideology among them. I tried to send it to James, but I don't know who, I'm gonna show you. You don't know who James is? James is in every discussion lately. James is an adamant person on Smash channel during this whole what Kemet means. James is on the Seshu channel arguing with Jawu or on Asar's channel arguing with Asar. You probably could see James on Netanev's channel, whatever the name of that is. James is in these circles keeping up the dust, and he's repeating other people's arguments when he comes to Asar Wujawu or even ask anyone in the chat. He goes by the name of Pan-African Designs and Apparel. He is the same person that told me that COVID was not spreading on the continent of Africa. Why is that? His approach towards scientific information is very uncharacteristic, and a lot of times he is left to chance. So in this discussion that was held on the Seshu channel, silencing women is the conscious community a breeding ground for the male chauvinism. I'm on a Kofi thing. I don't know why, but I am. Anyway, as you can see, Brother is highlighted here on the screen because he did a show on a Real Black Atheist show. He does have on his Mossi, Spears of the Mossi t-shirt. However, this ain't about Brother So James says he agrees with something Wujawu has said previously. I'm not going to play that. Then he says, when he's including himself here. He's including himself here. And let me see if I can make this bigger for people to kind of check here. James is clear here. I don't know what platform he has or where he was involved in a discussion or anything like that, but he says, when we say men need to address men, that's an old African law. How Wujawu doesn't know this law is telling. So I'm like, oh, okay. So women can't challenge men, you say? Now, I get it if you're talking about if there's arguments, beefs, like if it's on some rugged stuff, you want to kind of protect, the men's supposed to protect the women, the whole night. Yeah, I get you on that. But this is a conversation. This ain't a fight. What are we talking about? You know what I'm saying? Like, we're talking about information. We're not talking about no uh hostile environment that we're going into, and a woman is engaging in a conversation with men that are beefing with each other. This is YouTube. So he goes on to say, men addressing men, that's an old African law. He says it again. So I say, when women were seen as kings, who talked to them? I'm tripping right now. This is YouTube. I can't make this up. Men address men. That's an old African law. Sean, if you never heard of this or knew this, says something about you. I never heard of it. I never heard of it. I never heard of it. So now you have to show me this old African law. Who addressed Queen Nzinga? Who spoke on her behalf? What about, you ever heard about the Mossi? There's this sister that sits up or mounts up on a horse who is revered among the Mossi. What about her? Yanega. What about the Egyptian kings that ruled? What about them? What about Ya Asantewa? What about her? What about that African tribe, right? That doesn't allow men, that ban men, not saying that they don't associate or be with men, but they ban men from living among them. Huh? I'm just trying to name a few women out there. What about Ehibi Ugbe? She was a female king in colonial Nigeria. She was a slave who married to a deity, a runaway, a sex worker, him, and all of that good stuff. What about her? What about the thought of her? We can name and we can go through a history of women in Africa and we can find plenty of things. What about, like, on this channel, we did several shows. We can go all the way down to Madagascar. We can deal with the queen who wrecked shop, ran the Portuguese up out of there, handled a business and cut heads. What about the title Queen Mothers? Huh? I'm just a little confused. You have a very colonialistic point of view regarding these things. What up, Jamal? So no, I'm not on any attack today. This is not a show for that. But what I wanted to properly do is I want to um bring it to the Mossi, not to include the Mossi into anything, but this is an actual channel where we actually have content that relates to the importance and the role of women in African history, in African culture, right? And and I just want to actually say this. Look at the pantheon of deities among the African, different African tribes and so forth. Think about that. They have female deities. If you look around the continent of Africa, why the hell do they have female deities? Desmond, very good point. In African law, Africa is a whole continent with different cultures and people. When was there ever an overarching African law? There wasn't ever. James ain't showing up today. Where you at, James? Let's talk about this old African law that you brought up, bro. Let's build on that. But in the meantime, I want to kind of walk people through a few things that we need to discuss, and we can elaborate on it because it's something that we all can build on to actually get a proper understanding of why you should read, why you should study, why you shouldn't just be on here YouTube hopping. You look like, you know what I'm saying? You look like you for the YouTube streets when you running around hearing everybody chats, just running amok, saying things that are not necessarily factual, and then you don't properly define what it is that you're stating when you're trying to keep particular said educated people out of conversations. It's YouTube. It's YouTube. Now, if you out in the street and an argument break out, you absolutely are well within right to, hey, baby, I don't need you in this right here. I got this. Trust me, just step back. Keep your hand on that burner. In your purse. Keep your hand in your purse. When you come up out of there, be ready to pop it. You say that, right? Because we're going to go handle that other business. We can handle that business. That's real life. But we on social media. We are on YouTube. We're having a conversation. And we're going over something that's similar to a critique, and we just noticed some things, and it just so happens to be a female is hosting the show. Absolutely, Jamal. They do have deities that'll take your head off the cusp. That's why we got to be careful here. So I just want to make that clear that I understand what people are insinuating here, but we're on social media, so that shouldn't be we shouldn't be trying to put no hands over women's mouths and trying to hush them on subject matters when this is about information and not personal. It's not personal. So one of the things we have to do is decolonize our own minds and our ideologies and stop imposing certain ideologies on African thought. So I did drop this in the chat. I felt that this was a need to have a conversation. Why? Because it poses 5 questions, actually more than 5. But the initial was, why did African women infrequently appear in official records kept during colonial rule? How did the roles for African women under European colonial rule differ from women's roles in pre-colonial societies? What was the role of warrant chiefs? How did colonial rulers create a new structure of authority in Nigerian communities? Why do you think they did this? Why did European rulers force African women to stick to the boundaries of mothers, wives, and homekeepers? How might the pre colonial roles of women in African society have undermined colonial authority? How did the Egyptian women respond when the anti colonial party led by Zail was forced into exile? Now, continuing. So, we're going to deal with those, right? And let's see what we can learn. So, decolonizing women. This is by Rachel Hill, who was affiliated with Khan Academy. Because this isn't Harvard, this isn't Yale, this isn't Penn University. You know what I mean? This isn't the University of SoCal. Texas and so on and so forth. This isn't academia per se. This is YouTube per se. You know what I'm saying? You know, brother Uncle's wild for saying what he said right there. I don't understand that. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, he said it like that. That's how he said it. Peace. Peace. So let's take a look at the role of women. So, although often overlooked, women played an important role in anti-colonial struggles. Here we look at how women fought for independence in 3 parts of Africa. Learn to ditch 2 pits. This is from Khan University. He said this isn't peer. Nah, bro, this ain't peer reviewed. Nope. This live stream is not peer reviewed. There's a bunch of peers that are reviewing it, but this is not peer reviewed by the experts. Unfortunately, this isn't an academic setting according to our dear brother, Uncle Wes. He's funny for that. Anyway, he said, although often overlooked, women played an important role in anti-colonial struggle. Here we look at how women fought for independence in 3 parts of Africa. Women suffered more under colonial rule than men. In addition, early histories of the time ignore women's struggle for independence. Women don't appear much in the official records of that time because they were forbidden to participate in government or business. In some cases, colonial rulers forced women to live as Europeans thought they should, as mothers, wives, and homekeepers. But before European occupation, those same women may have held positions of power in their community. In other cases, women may have already been forced into domestic-only roles. In either case, because women were not officially allowed any roles outside of the home during colonial rule, the records of the time largely ignored them. But today, history scholars understand that women played important roles in groups fighting for independence and in labor unions, and women even fought in armed struggles against European colonizers. Who do y'all think they talking about when women fought against colonizers? Huh? What did them old oil women do? You know, the ones that played that role in Black Panther. Y'all forgot about them women? Oh, okay. So in this article, we will look at the role of women in struggles for independence in 3 parts of Africa. Now remember, before we go further, because I do see we have some new faces here, this is what we're dealing with. When we say men need to address men, that's an old African law. How Ujawu doesn't know this law is telling. Let's go further. Men addressing men, that's an old African law. Men, he says, address men, that's an old African law, Sean. If you've never heard of this or knew this, says something about you. Where's the law? Show me the law. I asked him in the chat, where's that law? Where is it located? I asked him. So let's proceed. Colonial rulers and warrant chiefs in Nigeria. Colonial rulers generally only accepted males in roles of authority. Not Nigerians, colonial rulers. For example, before colonial times, communities in southeastern Nigeria were run by groups of men and women rather than single leaders. But colonial occupiers would only work with male chiefs. Since there weren't any, the British chose random men to be the leaders and called these men warrant chiefs. These warrant chiefs, supported by colonial rulers, acted as judges and had a lot of power. This included power over women who had previously been a part of political rule. Women also struggled to make money under colonial rule. In many West African societies before colonialism, women farmed and participated in local business. Most able bodied women were either farmers or merchants. In southern Nigeria, for example, all members of a family farmed the family land. Let's take it back a minute. What were the 4 questions? 5. Why did African women infrequently appear in official records kept during colonial rule? How did the roles of African women under European colonial rule differ from women's roles in pre-colonial societies? What was the role of the warrant chiefs? How did the colonial rulers create new structure of authority in Nigerian communities? Why do you think they did this? Why did European rulers force African women to stick to the boundaries of mothers, wives, and home keepers? How might the pre-colonial roles of women in African society have undermined colonial authority? How did Egyptian women respond when the anti-colonial party led by Za'ad Za'awa was forced into exile? So we have a few answers already if you paid attention. Colonial rulers only accepted male roles of authority. Since women and men ruled together, colonial rulers would pick what they called these quote unquote warrant chiefs. These people would assume a position of power. They would be judges. They would dictate and rule. The colonial people picked the warrant chiefs, not the people. They would not speak to women. They felt that women were designated to specific roles in society, not the roles that came pre-colonial. Now, women helped produce important crops like palm oil in Igbo societies, cocoa in Yoruba societies. However, British colonialists brought the concept of individual land ownership to Nigeria and only allowed men to be landowners. So when women found it difficult to make money for these important cash crops, that's why. In some areas, however, like among the Igbo, women tried to hold on to their historic role as cultivators and market sellers. Women participated in anti-colonial actions. You got to be shitting me. Not the women that we want to be quiet, you know, the women that can't talk to men, that old African law, right? That old African law, men address men. What happened when these women ruled? Who addressed the ruling women in the societies? I'm confused. This is information. This isn't the streets. What is Reggie going to do? Jump through the screen and punch Emmy Cat virtually? He's going to meet her in the metaverse and fight her? What are we talking about right here? Or are you talking about verbally? Oh, he's going to disrespect her. No, he should have enough decorum to know that he's speaking with a woman and he has to hold back that energy and save it for Wujawu. If he really wanted some, if he really had that type of energy that he finna drag somebody, he should take whatever she say and then respond to Wujawu. Anyway, women participate in anti-colonial actions. See, Igbo women's knowledge of farming and business helped them resist unfair British laws. We ain't got to go too far back, y'all. Less than 100 years ago. In 1929, the British began unfairly taxing women in southeastern Nigeria. These women protested at Warren Chief's offices and attacked colonial buildings to demand an end to unfair taxes and Warren Chief system. Hold on. You had women in 1929 going to the men, the Warren Chiefs, the ones who held office, demanding that they change this unfair tax. But the old African law, according to James, states that men talk to men. So why did these women go to the warrant chiefs to argue about unfair tax? Watch what else they did. The women used protest methods that were historically used by Igbo women to express their disapproval of men who abused what? Power. Let me make it bigger. My bad, y'all. That's too big. The women used protest methods that were historically used by Igbo women to express their disapproval of men who abused their power. But according to this old African law, that's unjust, unheard of, never done before. Because the old African law states that women stay in women places and men only address men and handle business, men business. Why I'm only bringing up all stuff. Now, the women danced, sang songs about their poor treatment, and destroyed courthouses. They did what? They danced, sang songs about their poor treatment, and destroyed courthouses? Are you shitting me? Oh, let's take it back. This protest was known as the what? Look it up. The Abas Women's Rebellion. And it lasted 2 months. The protest ended December 17, 1929. During the protest, the British military fired into crowds of protesters and killed 55 women. Who killed the women? It wasn't the African chiefs, it wasn't the warrant chiefs. It was the British military who fired into crowds of protesters and killed 55 women. So it wasn't the old African law, what James said, where men only address men and women stayed out of it. It was women and their uprise who brought the smoke. This old African law ain't looking like an old African law, James. Your claim to fame is not working at all. Oh, your counter argument is going to be, but do you see what happened to them women when the British got fed up? But the African men still didn't do anything. They didn't. Yeah, you need to listen because you was a little chatty patty yesterday. What's going on, Jew? Peep this. But the protesters did help remove warrant chiefs in certain areas, and women began to participate in native courts. So, ladies and gentlemen, moral of the story, and we'll continue in just a moment. Because of the women protesting against the men, against the unfair tax in southeastern Nigeria, you know, the women who shouldn't be protesting anything, the women who shouldn't even be farming or in men business, they fought for their right to continue to farm, to continue to earn wages. They didn't want to be subjected to what Europeans thought was the role for women. And you're a little late, so you probably catching the back end of this. But the protests did help remove warrant chiefs, you know, the ones that these British put into play, and they began to reacclimate themselves into positions of power accordingly. Now, throughout the time the British were in Nigeria, women protested. So, the women didn't have a problem with African men. The women had a problem with the British idea of what the role of African women was. So they protested the whole damn time the British is even in the building. I ain't making this up. So for those of you who just straddled in here pretty lately, you're bearing witness to why someone can't say men address men as an old African law. Stop the cap. Let's go forward. Groups like the Markets Women Association, led by Elemotu Pelewura, and Obokitu Women's Union, led by Funmilio Ransom Kuti, pushed for women's rights and helped spread a sense of nationalism, the idea that people should be able to govern themselves. This nationalism eventually led to Nigeria winning its independence from the British. Unfortunately, Nigerian male leaders did not support women's rights and downplayed women's roles in winning independence. They turned into the British. Now remember, pre-colonial Africa, women had roles in esteemed positions in the governmental structure of the people. They led, they ruled. But there's this quote unquote old African law that said men address men. So when women were ruling, right? When women were ruling and had power and prowess over a people, who the hell spoke to the women that ruled? Who spoke to Queen Nzinga? Another woman? Or was it men that came to Queen Nzinga? James Gray said that's not how you pronounce it. I'm saying here, this is colonialism. So let's move forward. We've answered, right? We've answered some of the research questions. Why did women infrequently appear in official records kept during colonial rule? Because of the British. How did the roles of African women under European colonial rule differ from women's role in pre-colonial society? The British saw the women in a certain way. They saw them as homemakers, keepers of the house. They didn't see them as earners, money makers, governmental. They didn't see them as that. What was the role of the warrant chiefs? They were puppets to the British. How did colonial rulers create a new structure of authority in Nigerian communities? Because they picked who they wanted to be able to communicate with, to divvy down instruction to the people. Why do you think they did this? To control. I'm answering the questions for myself, but you can answer those questions for yourself. Why did European rulers force African women to stick to boundaries of mothers, wives, and homekeepers? Because they didn't have any respect for the women and their roles in Africa before they arrived there. How might the pre-colonial roles of women in African society have undermined colonial authority? We've seen the rebellion because these women had a place of authority among the people. They felt unjust and they wanted to continue to do business the way that they always have. They were earners. Women made money in African societies before these people got here. So let's deal with the last and final question here. How did women respond when the anti-colonial party led by Zakaria was forced into exile? In Egypt, women fought against colonialism and discrimination. Egypt had fallen heavily in debt to European powers by the late 19th century and was seized by the British in 1882. By the early 20th century, Egyptian nationalism, the desire to self-govern, grew in response to the British rule. Sa'ad Za'ullah led Wa'af, the first major nationalist party. The party led by men fought for independence from Britain, but also called for improving the rights of women in Egypt. Now, I want many of you to think about what I just said here about this time during the British having some stake over Egypt, because a lot of Egyptian artifacts are where in those British museums. Women also spoke out about the need to improve women's education. They argued that women could play important roles in society beyond mothers and wives. When Za'al and his party members were forced to leave Egypt, women helped organize the growing revolution against British rule. Who did it? Who did it again against the British? We're talking about two sides of a continent that don't communicate. They ain't got phones like that. They ain't got the internet. They ain't moving in the way that they need to be moving. Yet you have these two different people on opposite sides of the continent that are leading revolutions against the British. Look, on March 15, 1919, women joined in strikes, protests, and marches in Cairo. The next day, the wives of nationalist leaders were forced to leave Egypt. Safia Zagawa, Handu Sharari, Mani Fahmi Wissa led thousands of women on march. They carried flags of a crescent and a cross, showing that Muslims and Christians women both opposed British rule. These women also led boycotts of the British goods and continued to protest throughout the struggle for independence. This is happening in 1919. You know what was happening in America in 1919? Oh, yeah, I ain't got to remind y'all. Huda Sharari, wife of Wa'af, party organizer, the former leader of the party's women, founded the Egyptian Feminist Union. The EFU called for full political rights for women, equal education, and changes the personal status law. The personal status law ruled women's rights in marriage, divorce, child custody, and inheritance, and often unfairly favored men over women. This would lead to a group being formed in 1954 called the National Liberation Front. Even though they were not allowed to have leadership roles, but during Algeria's war for independence, women supported the FLN by raising money and soldiers, spies, nurses, and cooks. I just want to say this real quick. These uprisings, these fights for independence, right? This fight for independence in Africa for these African countries all involved women. You don't get independence in Africa during colonial rule without the woman. So who's talking to these women? Remember now, there's an old African law, men address men. So what African men was addressing the British to help get these women in, back into their societal positions of power? Come on, man. Yeah, I said her name. I know you came a little bit late, but there's many matrilineal societies in Africa, you know, where the kinship runs through the womb of the woman. Let's build. During Algeria's war for independence, women supported the FLN by raising money, soldiers, spies, nurses, cooks. They served as spies in the Battle of Algiers. They worked undercover, hiding messages, money, and weapons under their veils. They even dressed as Europeans in order to enter areas where Europeans lived and plant bombs. The roles that women played in the Battle of Independence were far different than the roles they were allowed in Algiers' pre-colonial male-ruled society. However, when Algeria won its independence in 62, most male Algerian leaders pushed for women to return to traditional roles in the home. So, fighting for independence. European colonizers forced women out of jobs, took property from them, and removed them from governmental roles. Many things made it difficult for women to be a part of fighting colonialism. They were forced to be dependent on men, had less rights than men, could not own land, and could not even earn money. But they still found important ways to help fight for independence. Here go your sources credentials right there, you know. What makes Rachel Hill, you know what I'm saying, an expert in the subject matter, since we can only point to the role of experts. Now, what I can do is I can support her article. What can I support her article with? History. What do we have in history? You heard me earlier in the show talk about Queen Nzinga, Yah Shantewa. You heard me talk about Yanega, the princess, the ruler, the Mossi warrior ride in. You heard me. You heard us. What about Queen Hatshepsut or Queen King Hatshepsut? Huh? We can go on around and talk about important people. Those are some names that people are more known. You know, that's more popular out there in society. But I got dozens of books, not dozens. I got a lot of books over here that could actually help support this PhD. So through research, right, and understanding history, I can support the expert and go from there. So what I want to do now is take it a step further. And I want to just kind of briefly jog people's memories and talk about women leaders that we know of. So, of course, we know about Queen Nzinga. What do you know about Donna Beatrice? Huh? What do y'all know about her? They called her a prophet. She come from that area where Nzinga was from as well. But you need to look her up. You need to look her up. She's very instrumental in some stuff down there. You need to look her up. Donna, there go her name on the screen for y'all. I'm not gonna get into all of this, but you can deal with that. What about her? Idea, the first queen mother of Benin, huh? What about her? I ain't gonna read this to you. I just want to kind of show you where you gotta go. Get to where you're going. Get some status in your life. Who's talking to these women if men address men? These women wanted to smoke. Pure. The plagiarism police or whoever he say he is, ain't none of that happening. So earlier you heard me talk about the women who booted the men up out of the land. Well, CNN did an article on them in 2018. Oh, my bad, 2019. And this is in Kenya. This ain't in West Africa. This is in Kenya. So many people may have forgotten, but This lady grew up in a community where women ruled and men are banned. Do I have to read this to y'all? Since men address men, who the hell are addressing these women that ban the men up out of the place? I thought it was a man's place to deal with this, that, and the third. Like women didn't have no particular stature or no a means of actually being able to, handle certain situations here. That boy said Catherine Jackson raised the king of pop. That boy retarded, man. So look, the village was started in 1990 by 15 women who became stigmatized in their communities after they were raped by British soldiers. You see what I'm saying? Do you not see where this is going? We talking Kenya. We have some more British bullshit going on. Raping women. So, after they were raped by the British from a base of a nearby archer's post, a trading center bordering Samburu and Isolo, some of the raped survivors say their husbands accused them of bringing dishonor to their families and kicked them out. They found piece of a land, moved there and named it Umoja, Swahili for unity. It was since grown into refuge, welcoming women escaping abusive marriages, female genitalia mutilation, rape, and other forms of assault. Even some women whose husbands died have found solace and home there. Leopora never met her father. She was told he died when she was 3. Terrified that her extended family would force her to undergo female genitalia mutilation, her mother strapped her to her back and fled to Umoja, where they've lived as part of the sisterhood for 15 years. She fled there to escape the female mutilation. The women of Umoja are all of the Samburu culture, an extremely patriarchal society that practices female genitalia and believes in polygamy. Umoja women span generations, with the oldest resident at the village aged 98 and the youngest 6 months old. Think about that. These women have children among them. The oldest, 98, youngest, 6 months old. So they still having what? Sex with men. Yet, the men ain't welcome. They ain't welcome. They only welcome to come serve the D. Serve the D and dip. Women of all ages flee there, some with newborn babies in tow. When the boys who live there with their mothers reach 18, they have to move out of the village. So the boys that live in the village, they got to move out when they reach 18, player. You know what I'm saying? Go on and get them some and get on out. At the village, traditional Samburu huts known as manyatas dot the landscape. The sounds of crackling chickens and giggling children fill the air. Like the other women in the village, Lepora lives with her mother in a small manyata made of wood, twigs, and cow dung. Inside, the only light is from the glowing embers of fire anchored by the 3 large rocks. In the evening, tidy modular structures are full of life, with chattering women sitting around the fire to talk about their day as beans and corn simmer in large pots. I grew up surrounded by so many women, Lepore says. It's like having different mothers all around you. They make beaded necklaces and pool their monies. There go the necklaces. There go the beads. Look though, she goes to a mixed sex school and wants to be a teacher. The husbands come looking for their wives. I'm skipping over the article because I don't want to get too far into it, but I just want to highlight some points for you. While the village has empowered some women in the community, it also has its critics. Some of the residents in nearby communities describe the women as too radical and capitalistic. Look, peep this. When asked whether men come into the village, the poor and the women say no. The only men who try to come are husbands looking for their wives, she says, and they're promptly kicked out. Some say more comprehensive solution is needed. It is what it is. But the point of the fact is, I'm showing you examples of women ruling still, even to this day, recent day. Women ruling. Let's strengthen the argument a little bit more. Let's go to a 2016 article. Reclaiming our place at the table, empowering African women leaders. Oh, they serious. In Africa, we know something about powerful women. Oh, let's see what she says. The history of African women working, fighting, and ruling alongside men stretches back thousands of years. Where's this, James? James, I know you listening, bruh. I know you listening, bruh. Come on, James. Tell me. When we say men need to address men, that's an old African law. How Jawa doesn't know this law is telling. James, where is the law, James? Men addressing men, that's an old African law. Where is the law, James? James, I said when women were seen as kings, who talked to them? I'm tripping right now. James, men address men. That's an old African law. Sean, if you never heard of this or knew this, says something about you. Well, where is the damn law, James? Here's why I asked you where the damn law is. Queens like Cleopatra of Egypt and Zinga, Teyatu Betul of Ethiopia, Nahada Shawe, Nakasima of Zimbabwe, Yanega of Burkina Faso, and numerous other women led Africa long before colonization. Thus, as the women of Africa rise to become leaders again, we must remember it is not a new phenomenon. These women are merely asking to reclaim their place at the table that they lost with the rise of what? Colonialism. As you can see, we had a few more people in the building, but they dipped out because, they don't support things like this. You know what I'm saying? They don't support this. It ain't a good look for them. They think, oh, Sean, he just reading you to death. Nah. Sean is supporting his argument. During the period of colonial rule in Africa, women became increasingly disenfranchised. We just went through a whole article of that, so I'm not going to go over that. But look, how powerful was Winnie Mandela when Mandela got locked up? She became a mogul. She even was going against her own husband. We need more women leaders. Women only hold 22.8% of the parliament seats, 17% of the ministerial positions, 19 of the world heads of states of head governments. I'm just trying to shed some light on the situation. Mind you, when people who run around here talk about consensus this, consensus that, oh, the consensus says, do you know that the consensus is dominated by men? That there's no equal, there's no equal ideology or perspective in the consensus. It's male dominated consensus. Like there's a very low percentage of women that are partaking in the consensus. And here we are, we're left with a male point of view on what a consensus is. Women can't have a say in the consensus. Are we serious here? Think about how stupid this is. The same people running around here talking about consensus are the same people that are supporting, that claim to support this upheaval for, raising women up and giving them their rightful place to at the seat at the table, but yet, oh, you're restricted to do this, that, and the third. This is YouTube, bro. We ain't in the street. in the street. Women can debate, right? Now we know what happened to Dr. Ma. You try to play it like, you know what I'm saying, bring up Dr. Ma and all the slander Dr. Ma had to deal with because of a young dude who was ignorant. You know, the young dude who say the black woman is God, and then next thing you know, she a bitch, hoe, slut, all these other things when they don't agree with them. You know what I'm saying? That was a game, bruh. That was a game. That was a game. That's why I said you can't continue to hang with stupid people. This is my opinion. When you're the smartest person in the room, you got to get out of the room. The stupid people will weigh in on your intelligence and drag you down with them. I'm just going to strengthen my argument. Now, women and authority in West African history. I'm going to bring it back to the west side. Lock your fingers up. West side, the best side. Right? California love. Now, authority is the power or right to give orders, make decisions, and enforce obedience. This chapter explores the political authority of West African women and the spiritual female principle in the pre-colonial and colonial eras. A longue durée perspective of gender relations in pre-colonial West Africa illuminates a history of gender parity and, at times, women's authority over men. I'm going to say that again for Mika in the chat. Women's authority over men. So who's talking to these women that ruled over men? Oh, your tune changing a little bit. Absolutely. Now, when it comes to treating, right? When it comes to the way women are being treated in these YouTube streets, that's a different conversation. That's a different conversation. So, this history has been obscured by Western patriarchal ideologies, which imagine West African women as beasts of burden. Women who were sold to the highest bidder from the productive and reproductive labor. In short, they imagined a West African woman that never was, and more recently historical prowess, particularly the integration of West African societies into broader international mercantile networks and the ensuing establishment of formal colonial rule. The starting premise of this chapter, therefore, is that during these pre-colonial times, West African women as a whole were never, as some scholars have argued, subjected to patriarchal forces that subjugated and subordinated them to men. Furthermore, West African women were not passive, but active participants in the making of their own histories. They played significant roles in their society's religious, political, social, economic prowess, exhibiting control over the key aspects of their end. Indeed, West African women and the spiritual female principle during the long pre-colonial period had the power and right to give orders, make decisions, and enforce obedience. In short, they had authority. Female political leaders were as common as male rulers and women, and the female political principle were central to seamless function of their societies. This right, however, would be contested and tested during the colonial period, resulting in the systemic wrenching away of that power, the removal of the women and female spiritual principle from the avenues of power and authority that they had previously occupied. West African women and their female spiritual principle did not, however, take this sitting down. They employed and evolved their pre-colonial strategies of enforcing obedience, i.e. pre-colonial strategies of resistance, into new strategies for fighting for their rights. So what I'm saying here is this unwritten African law that seems to exist according to the lenses of our dear brother James. and his perspective of men address men, and women need to fall back. Is bull jive. There's no unwritten law. There's no written law. It doesn't exist. Because when women ruled, who the hell talked to the women? You still ain't answered the question. He said, I guess the serpent is talking to those women. So, just to give you a little insight, because like I said, I know there's a attention span problem out there in our community, and some people have a problem with being able to follow a discussion for a certain period of time. I don't want to act like I'm boring you to death with reading. So I'm interjecting and I'm actually having a conversation, but I'm actually putting things back in its proper perspective on why people take certain positions. And I'm showing you how women had authority in West African societies and societies all over Africa, and how colonialism destroyed that byproduct. And now there's this new adaptive way of thinking that men can only speak and women don't have a position of authority in certain conversations, especially in these YouTube streets. Now, the way women are treated are different. That's a different conversation, one that everyone needs to work on to create better environments for them not to be treated as such, right? These sensitive, no women having men out there, or no established relationship out there, or whatever the case may be, where they just got this disdain for women or this hatred for women, right? Like where we're instantly negating their ability to be able to hold a conversation or keep up with a discussion is crazy. Not all of the women that are associated with us, right, are not like those other people in other areas of study where the pseudoisms overtake them and they seem to dumb down the conversations. But no, I think there's a lot of good female teachers out there in the world that actually voices need to be heard, but that's not my thing. So let's move forward. So let's deal with the West African worldview. In order to appreciate the ways in which, can y'all see this? That should be a little bit better. My bad. Now, in order to appreciate the ways in which West African women wield authority, one must first understand how West African conceptualize their worlds and when it means to exhibit power and authority therein. West African peoples identity two worlds: the human and physical world, visible world and non-human or spiritual invisible world. These worlds are not separate, but like two half circles or two halves of a cola nut. When connected, make up one continuous complete, the whole West African world. Therefore, one cannot understand the West African world nor appreciate West African history by focusing exclusively on the human physical realm. To do this would be only to tell one half of the West African history. Likewise, one cannot understand nor appreciate West African women's or gender history by focusing exclusively on the physical realm. Indeed, West African cosmology structures, which operate within a cyclical movement of time and continuum, demand that we engage with them in order to address the totality of West African experiences. You have to agree with that. Thus, any form of study about female political authority in West Africa must necessarily engage the female political spiritual principle, those unseen forces that are constructed by West Africans as females, such as goddesses, medicine, mass spirits, oracles, as well as women, human beings. Now, let me get through this and I'm gonna say something. Who have been endowed with spiritual idiosyncrasies to interpret these unseen spiritual worlds, and whose authority is personified in the work of priestesses, divine, or spirit mediums, healers, and prophetesses. Now, it must consider the multiplicity of female manifestations in both worlds. Hence, earlier when I talked about how they deify women, that within itself should tell you that men is having conversations with women and women is having conversations with men, and there's no unwritten or written law that says men address men. I'm gonna give you an example of what I'm talking about. If Black Panther was on the panel right now, I would ask Black Panther this question here. I would say, Black Panther. Black Panther say, I would say, so are you telling me if we're discussing Europe, but we're discussing how the Yoruba pantheon works, and you know how a man, right, could be how Osun could be the head for that man or whatever. I'm kind of mixing it up a little bit, but it's because I got too much on my mind. But you can get the gist of what I'm saying, right? So Ben would answer, because he's answered this before, and he said everybody thinks that a man is only gonna come at the feet or the head of a male deity. That is not the case. You could be at the feet of the head of a female deity in the Yoruba pantheon. People assume under the sense that that isn't the case. So the next time that Ben is live, or if Ben is not busy and he's on lunch or on his way to get lunch, I can ask him and he can clarify it and clear all of it up for y'all, how that works. You know, how you got sisters out there who only, they go see a diviner, and you know what I'm saying? They thinking they head go be oh soon, oh soon, oh soon. They, oh soon gonna be all of that, right? Or or something like that. Next thing you know, it might be a male deity. Same way for men. It might be a female deity. But y'all didn't know that. Does it make that person less of a woman or less of a man because the deities are switch swap? No, it doesn't. Just say they're a child of that particular deity. A man can be a child of a female deity. A woman can be a child of a male deity in the Yoruba pantheon. It just is what it is when it comes to that stuff. So the whole notion of this thought process that women need to be quiet during the conversations, or if the conversations are getting a little bit tested, I still don't agree with that. It's YouTube. If someone gets disrespectful toward the woman, it is then our job to shut that shit down. Address that head on. I recall a time, and I'm gonna say this, and I really ain't gonna harp on it. I recall a time Dr. Ma'at was on another channel or another platform at the time, and she was coming on there periodically. However, somebody's energy changed toward her, and he became disrespectful to her, where you haven't seen her back on that platform in quite some time, and she's been doing her own thing. There was a level of disrespect that was there, and it was uncalled for. Or even when Young Pseudo disrespected Dr. Ma'at, it was done on that said platform in his own. And people stepped up to ride for her for that. But if you look at the last 5-6 years, when women start being attacked by the police and they start feeling unprotected and things like that, you can see why some people would want to say we need to keep the women out of certain conversations or certain situations and things of that nature. Well, hell, nigga, you ain't been protecting them. You know what I'm saying? You ain't been protecting them before. Why you protecting them now? That's how some women feeling. So you gotta have some level of respect on why some, like Miss Tiffany, she came out and she was like, you know what I'm saying, I'm gonna hide behind the shield or whatever the case may be or whatnot. Okay, I understand that men have done a poor job of protecting women, but what I'm saying is in an educational setting, no, it's not Yale, no, it's not Harvard, no, it's not Penn University, no, it's not none of those academic settings that Unc said we're not. We try to be as scholarly as possible in these settings, and no, we don't try to control the narrative. But what we try to do is, in the settings that we do have, is be able to be cordial enough to educate and edify people so that they can get the gist of it and supply them with information that they can grow and develop from and source that shit up with supportive evidence. And as I was basically saying, if the disrespect comes, it is the male's job to handle the disrespect. And then, the sister could fall back from that while the disrespect is being handled. And once the disrespect is handled, she can come back to the forefront. But this wasn't the situation or case. This was an assumption and a jumping of conclusion. And this is why I was like, go back and listen to what you said. Because it really didn't hold no weight here. We having a conversation about something we really even should be having a conversation about. It's been 2 shows regarding chauvinism, in a sense. But I want to focus on James. I want to take it off of that because those dudes, they're gonna be live later and they're gonna be able to do whatever they want to do. I ain't buying that. I ain't buying that at all. I'm just gonna say it like that. You can protect them. You know what I mean? I understand it. People have their favorites and they have, personalities and things. You can protect them, but I ain't buying that at all. It was past. She shouldn't be speaking. And for him, she shouldn't be speaking because he felt that the disrespect was coming in the name calling and all of that. That's childish. I ain't know none of that, bro. You on her platform. How you gonna tell her she can't speak right now, or she shouldn't be speaking right now, or he delegates who should speak? First of all, the SESU has 9 members in it. She's the only female among the members. It's all men and just her. But whose voice do you hear the most consistently? Hers. And it's respected because she put in that work. So she ain't gonna get to no level. She told you, I don't care if you call me a bitch. She gonna get past all your shit because she trying to deal with the subject matter. She's not gonna move from her points because you're trying to be disrespectful. She's just going to let you put yourself on display and let women see who you really are. She's gonna let you expose yourself to the other women that might have seen you in a different light. Exactly, Jehudi. And that's all that was. He wanted her silenced. How you gonna come on somebody else's platform and try to say who can speak and who can't speak? Who was being nice enough to say, everybody be quiet, be quiet, be quiet? But give her the floor so that she could actually build because she has some questions. And she's a student in the field. And he wrote the article for it to be critiqued by people like us. Valid points. To run from that is disingenuous, but to defend that is even crazier. How could you defend that, bro? So, what I have established here is the role of women in not only West African societies, but other African societies. There was no hushing no women. There was no hiding behind men. Remember, the British killed 55 women for rebelling. But out of those 55 sacrificed lives, change occurred. Independence was won. That's why I didn't want to read y'all to death. I wanted to establish from the earlier onset that women have always had positions of powers and ruled. So who talked to those women? This is reflective in their pantheon of female deities across the continent. Women worked, they tilled the land, they did all of that. I've shown enough evidence to not even have to read no more of this particular article to let y'all know that what's going on. This article get a little spiritual on you and all of that, as you can see, but it's there and it's in the description of the video. It's in the description of the video. So I don't want to hear this, let's silence this, let's silence that, or anything about an unwritten rule. That's bull jive, man. Ain't no, yeah, you is. You is. And it's okay. I understand. You're trying to, I know a benefit of the doubt when I see benefit of the doubt. But it is what it is. So now I would, James, you're more than welcome to come explain this unwritten rule that says men address men. And this is an old African law. I would love to see that law. James Mosby said James left the building. He probably did. I would like to see this rule, this law that says men address men. And we have to get out of the mind frame of that. Probably as too many of us grew up being ruled by only their mom in a society where men ruled. Wow. Yeah. I mean, you have an argument there. You know what I mean? You have an argument there. James, you've been on everybody's channel. You've been on Smash channel, Pan African Design. You've been on SARS. You've been on the Seshu. You on all these other channels. Here's your shot, bro. You showed up on Science with Sean the other day trying to talk crazy. Here's your shot, bro. Show us that old African law where men address men. Now look, peep this. All of this stuff that's starting right now is to protect and defend a disingenuous person and their article. No. I got you. Jamal, you good, bro. No. I understand. Still a point. It's still a good point. What you made is still a good point. What up, Lamar? I don't think that he would ever admit that he was wrong because of his behavior, especially regarding other subject matters, things that he's unfamiliar with. He continues to demonstrate those behaviors. You know what I mean? He's not studied on a particular subject matter, yet he's trying to ask questions as if they're his own, and if someone answered them, that he would fully understand it, when he in fact does not. He doesn't study Coptic. He doesn't study the Sesh. He doesn't study languages as a whole or in its entirety. All he want to know is that Egypt was black. So I don't think that he would admit that he was wrong and keep it moving. It would be fair if he did do that, but I don't think that he has the integrity, because a lot of people in this community lack integrity. And that's problematic. Like if I'm wrong about something on a point, the next time I even get back to that, you'll see adjustments in how I either convey something or what from what I've learned and how I'm presenting it in a manner to show you that I've accepted that correction. But if I continue to do the same thing, you know what I'm saying, and you don't see an adjustment, then that means I didn't accept the correction. Then you need to charge me again because I'm not above. No one is above correction. Whether the correction is publicly or privately, I'm gonna take it how I come. People got mad at me about the titling of the videos or whatever, right? Or where I did particular shows or whatever, right? So what I did now is, okay, I'm gonna take your arguments away from you. Since there's this unwritten rule about how people are supposed to title the shows and where to do the shows. So I just created the shit show. Do that on Science with Sean. Still make it a little educational, still make it a shit show. When I'm here or when I'm on KPRT, it's only about African history, African culture, some science, archaeology, anthropology, paleontology. You know what I'm saying? It's only about those things on either one of those. So therefore, we keep the learning environment, and we don't muddy the water with mess. Ultimately, that has always been the goal. What else has always been the goal is us to create institutions for learning. Nah, we not Harvard. Nah, we not all that. I still think that's the funniest. We ain't none of that, but we damn sure can be. And no, I ain't telling none of y'all to go subscribe to Science with Sean. If you come to Science with Sean, you come on your own merit. I ain't telling you to go subscribe. You don't even hear me promoting that channel. That is the fact, and I said that earlier, Wolf, if you missed it. That is the underlining fact, is that people need to understand that you cannot, I repeat, not dictate your terms of whatever. You just might as well not even hop on the channel. Don't even hit the link, bro. If you go come in trying to create some rules for communication on somebody else's platform, don't even hit the link. Because those rules don't apply nowhere else. I can't go on other people's channels and then tell them I'm only talking to Sheffrin. What? Out of here. You kind of get, well, the font is too big, but they do have a table of contents. Okay. That boy crazy. Elbow cough. But it is what it is at the end of the day. And I think that when we see comments like James comments, and I'm gonna show this one more time, but when we see comments like this, right, we have to put that into perspective. And that's what today is about. It's about the role of women in African history. And it's about this unwritten rule that he says that it also exists. When we say men need to address men, that's an old African law. There's no old African law that says that. Not when you had women ruling and assuming leadership roles. We have to continue to keep that perspective. We have to continue to encourage that avenue of learning and showing how we are really the issue at the end of the day. So if we fix ourselves, then we'll have a better you know, playing field. Because who led I just went through examples of the rebelling, women having these rebellings led to these African countries gaining their independence. It wasn't men that was rebelling, it was the women that was rebelling because they felt unjust. They rebelled out against certain situations, and that was grounds for change. Colonialism, slavery and colonialism has impacted us so much so that, yeah, we deal with trauma, but we won't even allow ourselves to fully understand what's going on. And to try to dictate terms on a YouTube channel that you're not even a part of is asinine. Or even to insinuate that a woman should fall back, craziness. As I stated earlier, Emike is the only female right now in the session among men. And every last one of the men that is in the session always yield the floor to Emike and listen because she got it. Period. I'll argue with her, but she got it. She's still right. I just be arguing from ignorance, but she got it. He says, yes, that's the biggest problem is how once one should do something, but you then shouldn't go on another channel and paint a narrative as the victim without telling it from the both sides. Absolutely, Lamar. I think that what happened was that was a little, played, you know what I mean? Narrative controlling in itself. Oh, Zane says he think he meant Afghan law. All right, got you. Okay, maybe that's what it was. Ujawa says, if John Doe gets on the panel and wants things their way, that doesn't mean they are going to get their way. The world doesn't revolve around John Doe. That is false entitlement. That is a fact. We're here because of that. Oh man, he said it's sissy ship. We got see now scholarship from a point of view of certain people. So look, I don't know what's going to happen tonight. I don't know what'll be a part of what. That's up to y'all. I'm not even paying attention to the noise. I just wish people well in their endeavors. And if you can't stay in the middle of the road and properly understand how to critique the arguments from both perspectives, set feelings aside, remove your emotions, and deal with the information, then you're going to have problems properly understanding what is right, what is wrong. However, the show was to address the role of the woman and give it some clarity because someone told me and Wujawu yesterday that there was this unwritten rule in African law or written law in Africa that said men address men. And I wanted to deal with that because I felt like that was a slap in the face to all the powerful African women all over the continent that played important roles in uprisings, fighting against slavery, liberating themselves and helping gaining independence, raising families, doing more than just what how the British saw them or how colonialism saw women in Africa, and that was just being mothers, attending to the duties of the house, raising kids and stuff like that. Like, nah, these women want to be able to have their roles. That's why you see mothers in fields with with babies tied to their backs, doing work and still being mothers to their children, taking their children to their work environment and still working, right? You see them in rice and swampy rice fields. You see them in these 120-degree temperatures doing all of that stuff. So I think that we have to get out of the ignorance of how people are perceiving things to be when that is not the case. Hopefully we don't continue to make some of those historical mistakes and start painting people in the light of something that they're not. And you know, we restore things. We make things more comfortable for more women to be able to communicate and get involved in these discussions, and add their add their perspectives and what they've been studying regarding these topics or research questions, and address them appropriately. As I said, I left some sources in the description of the video regarding everything that we actually covered. I don't want to drag everyone out of anything like that, but you know what I'm saying? It is what it is. Yeah, and I agree with this. And that's part of the problem, too much personality worship. James is a groupie. He said, at this point, after I saw him in Smash Chat bragging about how he got intel on the sesh, I could no longer take him serious. Yeah. And that's what he does. He tries to join people's panels to do just that, to say he gained some intel. And then he regurgitated other people's arguments and always botched them. That's why this video is here. This is for Brother James. Brother James, come from up under your rock. I know that you're up. I know that you're tapped in. I know you left a couple of times and came back, but you have to answer the question of this unwritten law in African society that states men address men. Women should not address men. You got to go get that. We need that. We need that ASAP. It's amazing that a certain community is mad when the squads are being a better way of a scholarship to get an understanding of information, because just using feel-good bias to the information. That's facts. Like, I've always said this, in order to get to the truth, you have to create an unsettling environment, meaning that if your stomach is not rolling over, twisting in knots, you know, just speaking, if you don't have that unsettled feeling in your body when you're reading information, or you're uncomfortable in this particular information, you ain't at the truth. If it just feel good and you're gonna support it, then it is what it is. We know that James is a part of this conversation because he wants to support his bias. At the end of the day, it's about Black people being in Egypt, and Egyptians calling themselves Black. Whether he is wrong on that point, he wants to hold on to that point because he can't get away with that. And absolutely. And that's why this is the other portion of the point of why I talked about the role of women in Africa, because it wasn't no falling back. If women was ruling, who was talking to the women? Other women? No man was talking to them. Absolutely. You've been entrenched in a discussion. And not only the fact that you was a host, you've been interested in the discussion, and it's obvious. And that's why I said we have to look at, if we're going to use these moments, right? We have to use these moments, and it's a lot of teaching moments in these moments. And you know, you got to make sure you're on the right side of these conversations, and not think that you're on the right side because of your ego, but know that you're on the right side based on how this thing is ultimately looking. Amy Kess says, and yes, I'm also qualified to speak on the topic every other male was able to speak on. So the argument that Reggie required only Wujawa to speak to him is mute. Otherwise, Reggie should have opted to stay out. That's a fact. Learn says, a wise man told me scientific literacy is the antidote against charlatans who will come amongst you. Oh man, it was a whole open discussion. Why would anyone need a father? Well, it's true, but I'm finna tell y'all right now, and I know they listening. I know they listening. I know they hit their back now. I know that. Get prepared for the shenanigans. If you listen, get prepared for the shenanigans, because what's going to happen is what I've been challenging for quite some time. There's no research methodology here. There will be no scientific method here. There will be no level of literacy and comprehension. It'll be all emotions and feelings. And if anyone goes on a rant, It's going to be a couple of few people, and everybody else is just going to talk their jazz, and the whole audience is going to be entertained with ignorance. I know what's coming down. So, and I know James will be in the building. James, I know that you'll be in the building. So you're going to have to show people at some point, because you continue to get away with dragging everybody else's arguments from channel to channel. You're going to have to show us this unwritten law or written law in Africa that says men should address men and women shouldn't address men. You're going to have to show that. And we want to see the evidence for that argument some way, somehow. I don't even care if it's a Facebook post. We want to see that. Oh, yeah. Facts. Put that back up there. So ultimately, the goal is for what you just basically said, Mr. Mosby. The goal is for the young Black youth, so that they don't come behind us and make the same mistakes that we see or we have partaken in now. So this should be a changing of the guard conversation for everybody involved in it. And we should be better at taking critique. We should be better at communicating and creating safe space. We should allow more people to be involved in these type of discussions, because they can bring that energy that can level the playing field and keep the madness out. If anyone is to think that they're going to disrespect a woman on a platform, you call her out her name or anything like that, you best believe that there are men out there that will stand up, defend, and challenge you on you disrespecting women. It's not going to go that far. The conversation wasn't going that far. And we've seen it on other platforms. And Mika, you can attest for that. Sonetta called you a bitch in Garfield's chat. I went at his head in that chat. You know, he called me all kind of names, right? And you and I, we wasn't seeing eye to eye. We was probably arguing because I had you blocked. But he disrespected you, and I wouldn't allow the disrespect to happen to you, because no matter the the issues that people have, right? Like you just don't let other people just be disrespectful to women. It's okay if he want to call me out my name, and I know some women can take it, you know what I mean? But man, if you don't have enough self-control to sit here and be like, man, why am I finna even disrespect this woman? She just talking about my article and I'm getting in my feelings. Like, if you can't self-check yourself, then whatever come behind it. But we ain't letting you get away with the disrespect. And then we're not gonna let you put women in a perspective where they don't have a voice, they need to be silenced, or they need to be shielded, and now it's time for them to get out of the conversation. Nah, I ain't room for none of that. The Seshu channel ain't even about that. We don't do that on all these other channels. Now, other people might do that on them other channels, but the channels where you can go get you that real knowledge, we don't be doing that. Rage is not special enough to session to break. Yep, facts. Also, Mr. Mosby, you asked a good question. This is something that I can't, we can ask, what is James' punishment? James' punishment, you know what I'm saying? If I made any recommendations to anyone who wanted to get involved in James' punishment, he should really stop click hopping. He should stop click hopping. He should stay off YouTube, and he should start reading more books on African history and the role women played in these different societies, and understand the importance of such. And Jehudi again with another fact. This is a fact. She will embarrass a lot of people because of the way that she actually comprehends information, and she's not slow. She's not. And it'd be surprising me sometimes the way that she responds to certain people's comments. I'd be like, God, at least she's too methodical. She's too methodical. And remember, she knows many languages, so she's very educated. So you don't have enough control to talk to us like that. He think we ain't qualified. Absolutely. Absolutely. We are his peers. We are. Just because he's a little older than us does not mean that he's our elder. He's not that much older than us for him to be our peer. He's not our, you know, he's not our granddad or nothing like that, father, nothing like that. Zane asked a question, but I don't think that StreamYard caught Zane question. But people who do call women female dogs, why would you even tune into that? That's a fact, James. Good. I mean, Jamal. Great. That's a fact. You're right. We don't have to go to Africa. We can look at the civil rights movements because we don't get what we get without the women fighting and making things the way that it is. So we can actually see that. And what happened to those women? You know what I mean? During the bus boycotts and the sit-ins and things of that nature, Black women play instrumental roles in that. You're right. We don't have to go all the way back to Africa. But the only reason that I did go back to Africa like that is because James said that there was this unwritten or written law that men address men and women don't say nothing. So that's why I went right there. I skipped over all of that to go back to Africa, So slap me on the wrist for that. You're absolutely correct. But man, I appreciate everybody tapping in. I know the crowd kind of growing right now. I did throw the link out there. I wasn't trying to make this about, everything else is going on. I know that this conversation could go left or it can get right. It can have agreements or it can have differences. However it may end up tonight is solely on y'all. I just want you to continue to think critically in these conversations. Keep your perspectives in the middle of these conversations. Don't veer left, don't veer right. Don't let other people's opinions and conclusions be yours. Determine your conclusions based on evidence. Don't think that someone showing you sources is supportive. Make sure that you evaluate those sources and that you're able to properly source critique and find out if the information is substantial in any argument and that you come to a proper understanding based on the evidence and not the opinion and the emotional prowess of personality worshiping and things of that nature. And then that's where you go. So if it's not about the information and it's just about rhetoric and feelings and emotions, remove all of that. When the moment becomes about information, hone in on that. Hash those things out. Don't be afraid to ask questions. Don't be afraid to not think critically. And don't be afraid to ask for the opposing arguments. Meaning that if they have people on the panel that just agree with one line of thinking, ask them for supportive evidence that goes against their perspectives that they actually critiqued. If they don't have any sources that they critiqued from the other side of the opposing argument, you need to consider that. Was this information done from a biased perspective? That you have to account for. And I'm telling y'all that because this is a pattern, a behavioral pattern where people will throw up sources and it will never be the pros and the cons of two different opposing views. It's always about one opposing view. So yeah, man, I'm gonna stay on the methodology part, bro, because that answers real world questions. And that's gonna be our thing. But look, man, I'm about to get up out of here. I need to go to the gun range, let them things fly, fly, fly. Yeah, I need to go hit me some targets, keep that aim proper, and get into some studies later on and go back and rewatch UGK and 8-Ball MJG verses from last night because that was classic for me, and make sure that we do our due diligence. But more importantly, man, I want to make sure that y'all arm yourselves with how to properly critique these people that's going live all the time and have opposing views, because I don't think everybody's weighing all the evidence that has been presented. Like, we still have people that haven't read, hold on. Couple books. We have people out there that are a part of arguments and haven't read a couple of books. So I know most people buy books to say that they actually bought to support, but don't buy a book to support, buy a book to read it. You know what I mean? Buy a book to read it, especially if someone's expounding on an argument and trying to get you to understand what's going on. So if you haven't read the 95-page book from the Shamsu Heru research team, I suggest you do that. If you haven't read this, the etymology and meaning of the word kemet, then you need to read that. At least read that chapter if you're going to involve yourself in these conversations. At least read the Shamsu Heru research team book on the subject matter. And also go read Reggie's article and his argument as he proposes meanings for these particular words, but saying that his article was not to refute, debunk, or challenge the Shamsu Heru research team's work. So you got to know when, people are lying on you and things of that nature, or lying to you, because like I did on the shit show on Science with Sean, I showed you how Reggie blatantly lied to Ujawa. I did, because he was saying his argument was to refute the Shamsu Heru research team, yet he got on the panel and said that it was not. And then he tried to spin that whole narrative. And then he went like he was on Garfield's show, and he said what he said. He said, Kemet doesn't mean no riparian mess, and he started trying to belittle people. That's where it all stems from. See, people think that Sean did a video on Kofi Pie's research team, and that's where it stems from. No, you got to watch the end of the Dagger Squad show. Or you can go on Kofi Pie's research team and watch that very first meaning about the video about the meaning of the word Kemet. And you'll see me play the video where Reggie tells on himself within the context of that video. Oh, yeah, you're right. Dang, I forgot all about that. Yeah, yep. I am. I got to get ready for the YouTube feds. I got to get ready for them. You know what I'm saying? I don't know how they're going to come. I got to fight. Absolutely. The support is cool. The reading is cooler. And all these claims of plagiarism and all of that, you know what I'm saying? Wash that down the drain, bro. People are citing sources out here. They're leaving you bibliographies. Everybody's citing sources. We're not condemning Reggie for his mistakes, the way that he's challenged people, but he did bring a lot of that on himself, because for 2 years, 2.5 years, he went on a whole little shot, shade shots, throwing shade shots at Asar, Wujawu, Sanjeti, and others. So he has to deal with that. Why is the meaning of a couple of words, Kemet, particularly so important to the argument the centuries about? Why is it important? Because a lot of people have the argument misunderstood, and they misrepresent what it actually means. This hypothesis has been fumigating in the community for quite some time, and it has people under the impression that the word meant the black people or the black land, and or the black bull or the black bull people, or whatever the case. Like, there were so many misconceptions surrounded by that, and we need to be honest in scholarship. Remember, go all the way back to this quote unquote saying, right? Stand on the shoulders of our ancestors. Who's known for saying that the most? In order to stand on the shoulders of our ancestors, you have to, in places and in part, you have to advance their work. which means you take with you what they got right, you correct what they got wrong, and that moves things forward. Especially if you're a science enthusiast and a science advocate. You have to advocate for proper research methodology, scientific literacy, and understanding. You have to deal with all of those aspects. And being science enthusiast, science requires you to know, science requires you to do. Those are two things that science offers up to the human population to solve natural world and and unnatural things per se. So it is very important. It is not the only important question regarding things. It's just the hottest again. It's 2019 again, so it's the hottest thing again. But ultimately, you know, when we try to move conversations forward and get to the reasons why to study ancient Egypt and so on and so forth, we can't move in the way that we want to move because people keep bringing us back to ground zero. We'll get to A B C D E F G, and by the time we get to H, we back at A. So as soon as we get to H, we're back at A. When we think we're forwarding information, and the best way to forward information is to put pen to paper and push it out there. It is. So congratulate all the authors out there that participated in the discussion and trying to advance and move Diop's work forward, right? Stand on Diop's shoulders and advance the conversation and answering the research question and doing what he said to do. Those are important avenues. We have to do that with everybody's work. We're not stuck with one research question. There's several research questions, and there's things out there that you done heard Wujawu say before that he wants to get involved with, especially dealing with this whole spirit thing and libations and stuff like that. Like there's some other conversations that he wants to have, and we'll see where that goes. But if people aren't grown enough to handle these other conversations, I don't think that people are going to be grown enough to deal with other topics that need to be dealt with either. I don't think that we're going to get anywhere either in those conversations. And remember, we spent the last 7 years fighting with Hebrews, Moors, Abos, every day, every year over the past few years. And now, you only have a handful of people that's actually trying to embody scholarly research and methods and publish information, because remember, the people that came before us, they stopped publishing information. They just got on TV and talked. So we're trying to get people reacclimated to reading comprehension, and the advancement of proper information. Okay, so it's still based off trying to provoke Kim. It was black people, but didn't we prove that already about the word? Yes, Jamal, but apparently people didn't get it. Or do Egyptologists still argue Egypt was Semitic? Little this, little that. I'm being the kid that prolongs the class by asking mad questions. Shaking my head. I hated that kid. Nah, bro. Nah, it's all good. But look, man, there's several topics, right? Like we can go back and we can go a few years back and we can pull or extract, because I've done that with Lord Abba. He said Islam came in peace to the continent of Africa. I went back a few years to answer that particular question based on, studies and researching that particular question in general and collecting data and so on and so forth. And through that collection of data and, through all the books that I bought and reading all of those books and stuff like that, my notes. And let me see if I can do this for y'all. Oh, no, I don't have them in here. But I've shown them before on a previous show where I would open up my books and show you where I've taken notes and wrote down page numbers and things like that to refer back to. Through all of that, I just compiled a body of answering, a body of sources to answer the research question properly so that we could actually get to the did it come in peace part. Was it, because sometimes we answer things emotionally with our feelings and we don't answer it with proper research methodology and so on and so forth. So just trying to do our better, me personally, I'm trying to do a better job at attacking some of these research questions and answering them in a manner that we can answer them with information and not our feelings and emotions. But now you're not really prolonging, man. You know what I'm saying? It ain't nobody at the gun ranges around this time. It's only like 3 or 4 people, and they're all elderly people. So you can get in there and you can let off 300 rounds and you good if that's what you want to let off. But I usually try to let off about 200 rounds. And plus, they got a sale on some ammo at Academy Sports. All them religions come to Africa in peace first. That's how they survey the land to later take the resources. I wouldn't say I wouldn't say the religion comes peacefully. I would say that people come peacefully first to survey the land via trade. The religion doesn't come yet. The religion doesn't come initially. You have to establish a relationship to do business first before anything else could actually come. 9mm, Glock 45, and a Ruger 9mm. 2 9s, man. 9 times 9. Yep. So those are the things that we actually have to deal with. And ultimately we have to do a better job at that. Now, I will say this. I don't think that it does the community any just for people to try to disabuse their pseudoisms on a live stream or work out their pseudoisms on a live stream. Does the community no just? I don't think that just pulling up an article and reading it on a live stream is going to do you some just. I suggest that you at least read the article a few times. And if you're supporting the article with anything else, that you have the supportive information that you've read, and then you kind of bring that up for an open discussion or to plant seeds for an open discussion in the future. When James said what he said last night, yesterday afternoon, all yesterday, I knew that I had some information that I could speak to this particular point. I mean, I really could have just said, what about Nzinga? What about these other queens that ruled, these leaders? I could have been naming a bunch of names. But I wanted to actually properly show people why I'm even doing the show and then run down the case study. And that Khan article I've had for 2 years in my everybody, I still use Hangout messaging. So I use Hangout messages to file it because they don't erase the history. And I can go all the way back to when I first got a Hangout account and look at the sources that I dropped in. And so I kind of file it away there and then I search them. I got a particular way that I be searching them to pull and extract them. So I knew that from some stuff I had read before that I could pull it and be a good exercise. Plus that Khan article is set up, the school of thought is set up with the questions first, and then it provides you the ability to be able to read the article and then you can go back and answer those questions. So it would give you more of a discussion format. But I don't think that, doing certain things a certain way is good for the community, especially when you are trying to edify people and then claim that you're not teachers. Yeah. I'm not necessarily trying to say I'm trying to be a marksman, but I think that 200 shots. Some people shoot 300 rounds. You know what I mean? But yeah, work on your marksmanship, and I think especially from far distances, um, even though they say, hypothetically speaking, or if you ever been in a situation, most fights when it comes to weapons, they occur within 3 to 6 feet, right? And that ain't too far of a distance. So they're really up close. But if the fight is 15 feet away from you or 25 feet away from you, and there's an exchange in fire, you wanna still be able to, you know what I mean, knock your target down and win that fight. And I want to be able to 25. I mean, I say feet. I meant yards. So you want to be able to knock. You want to be. I want to be able to knock my target down from 25, 30 yards. You know what I'm saying? 50 yards. I want to be able to pow. I want to. You know what I mean? Just with a handgun. You know, in most instances, people like, man, that's why I gotta, you know what I'm saying, AR, whatever, shoot, and do whatever you want to do. That's cool. But I wanna be that guy that can knock you down from 25, 30, 40 yards away, and apply that pressure. I want to win that fight right then. Because I know if I'm up close on you, it's a wrap for you. I'm really hitting that red dot everywhere. Doing a lot of worse. Yeah. Pseudos are mentally contagious to the public. That's a fact. But hey man, I don't know if y'all watched the Signs with Sean last night, but stupid people exist. Stupid people exist, and stupid people will cost smart people a lot of money. Been watching the Mark Polo, great example of trader coming in peace, then bringing the shenanigans in that series. Not an African example, but yeah, it's a good example. I mean, you can relate to that if you understand the history. So I'm not gonna hold y'all up, man. I know some of y'all are working and just want to kind of get through your days and stuff like that. But it won't even be any shenanigans on this platform, and I apologize for that. But I just think that everybody just needs to be careful in these conversations. I'm always going to uh, I'm always going to promote scientific literacy. I am always going to support proper research methodology. I'm always going to support the role of women in Africa and their perspectives. I'm always going to support uh, I'm always going to support like certain things, like the way we get to information. Period. I don't believe in the microwaving. I watched for years. I watched people fight against microwaving information and not becoming a byproduct of that microwave system. And you know what I mean? And that's where I'm at on that. Uh, by the way, I'm gonna give me a 5.7. I think I'm gonna get the FN 5.7. Uh, I know that wouldn't have nothing to do with what I was just saying, but I just wanted to throw that out there because somebody was, mentioning it. What else? But I'm always going to support those things, and I know everybody don't like me, and that's cool. I don't try to be liked by everybody. I try to argue with everybody because that's when we can really get to the truth, and we can get our feelings out of the way, and then we all can adhere to the evidence. So ultimately, whatever exchanges happen and comes out of those things, that I hope that y'all are staying in the middle of these conversations and not choosing sides and dealing with the information critically, using proper methods, source critiquing. Don't let someone point you in the direction of the expert. Have people that will point you in the direction of how to resolve how the expert came to said conclusion. And I think that that would do a much better job for you and I and others within this particular battle for hashing out this research question that just hopped back up. Um, and then it'll be whatever it is at that particular point. So we can move on to more serious things. And I think that the more serious conversation would be the way that we treat women on these platforms. I think that's a more serious conversation that outweighs, you know, arguing about the other thing. And we should give credence to that. And, you know, thank Emmy Cat for ushering that discussion in and bringing that to light, because we did see from a lot of women in the chats that, you know what I mean, they don't feel like certain spaces are safe for them to communicate in, and that they have to bag back and get away from the subject matter, and they shouldn't have to feel like that. So with that said, man, y'all enjoy the rest of y'all day, man. I don't know what's gonna come of it, but I know a lot of y'all will be checking in and tapping into that. So um, spills are flying and pseudos are crying, and as you can see, there's only one side crying. It's only one side crying right now.